Alrighty, guys, welcome back to Let's Talk About It. Now, it's been a second. It's been a second since we have done a Let's Talk About video. Listen, things just got super busy, and Let's Talk About was a series for me that just wasn't getting the views I wanted. So I'm like, okay, let me put a hold on it right now and just focus on stuff that is getting views, our movie reactions, our trailer reactions, and TV show reactions. And now I think I'm in a place now where I can start bringing back the series, because for the time we were doing it for a while, you guys seemed to really enjoy it. And I loved all the people who ever chipped in, gave comments, and watched and liked that video. And I'm happy to announce that we are finally back doing it now. The reason why we're doing it right now is because Marvel has... There used to be a big interview with Kevin Feige over at Variety. And he, dropped some major stuff about, the future of the MCU, things they need to fix and things they can and cannot do anymore, and, reasons why things have gone the way they have. And, it's for a fan of superhero films. I'm excited to see what he has to say. I'm excited to see what he has to say. So, first off, we're going to start with some of the bigger stuff, and then we'll work our way down to some of the more, analytical stuff, if I'm going to say it like that. So, first off, the first topic we're talking about is the plan after Secret Wars. Listen, Secret Wars is a big movie. When I think of Secret Wars, I think of all the characters we have in the MCU, and then every single legacy Marvel hero coming together to fight Doctor Doom in an Avengers Endgame battle. That's how I envision it. And the question is, where do you go after you do something like that? Because, you do a movie like that, what do you do next? How do you keep making Marvel movies to be more relevant, more fresh, and more enjoyable for the audience, at least? Well, Kevin Feige has a plan. According to this article, he says Marvel Studios plans a reset, not a full reboot. Listen to what that says. A reset, not a reboot. Listen, let's talk about the difference between a reboot, and a reset. A reboot would be something what DC is doing right now. They had the Zack Snyder universe. That was its thing. Had Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Ben Affleck. The new Superman we have right now, that is a reboot of that universe. It's starting over from scratch. Now, a reset, that's a bit different. A reset, basically what I think reset means is you look at what, I'm going to make another DC example. After Justice League, they weren't trying to reboot the universe. They were trying to reset it, doing stuff with Black Adam, but that never really worked. So we know how that worked. That's resetting, trying to still stay within that universe, but kind of go off the path they were on before. Of course, it didn't work. Who knows how it works for Marvel, but let me just give you my take on this. I think you need to do that. Listen, we're not in the heydays anymore where Marvel was pumping out, a hit every single time. You look at the last few movies, even right now, it hates me to say it, but Thunderbolts, and Captain America Brave New World have been very, very bad for them. Listen, Thunderbolts, you guys already know, I love Thunderbolts. I love that movie. I love it. It was one of the only MCU movies that made me cry. But no one saw that movie. No one saw the movie. And you're probably thinking, how did that happen? How did that happen? Well, in my opinion, that happened because you were using characters that no one knew or really cared about. I'm sorry, I don't want to say it, but it is the truth. You ask a bunch of people, do they care about a Russian Captain America? No. Do they care about Walmart Captain America? No. Do they care about Black Widow's sister? No, they do not. And the box office showed, even if you tried to make it the new Avengers, that still wasn't enough to make people want to go see the movie. Now, that doesn't take away for how good the movie was. In my opinion, one of the best films they have done since Endgame. And, and I absolutely loved it. It felt like a return to the form for the MCU for me, but at that point, you're at a point now where people are really starting to give up on the MCU. Listen, everyone's talking about DC right now because DC had their first movie, hit with Superman. Marvel hasn't had that hit since Deadpool and Wolverine. And in my opinion, that is another movie I don't count. Because Deadpool and Wolverine relied on cameos, in my opinion, to be successful. It required Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. It required Wesley Snipes' Blade. And I think that's what made $1 billion. And not just the movie itself. Because if you look at that movie, it's a basic story. but it's an enjoyable movie. It's a fun time. You're there for the banter with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds. I like Deadpool and Wolverine. It's not my favorite. It's not my. I think out of the 3 Deadpool and Wolverine Deadpool movies, it is my least favorite. I go to Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. I think I enjoy those more. But Marvel hasn't had a verified hit with their own characters for a long time. And that's my thought. I think a reset is what you need. I think you need to look like, listen, what we did with what's it called? The Multiverse Saga did not work. And we really lost a lot of our core audience. How do we get those guys back? Well, why don't we do a reset? Kind of, not a full reboot, but a kind of retelling of other stories. And that basically tells us that Secret Wars, that is going to be the Crisis of Infinite Earths of their movie. So, very excited for that. Now, the next thing he goes and talks about is the X-Men. Listen, the question has been, we want to see X-Men, but how do you introduce X-Men? How do you make it show that in your current Marvel universe that you can have characters who have altered DNA, who are these people who can be all these different things, and they have existed for millions of years, including characters like Apocalypse and Magneto. How does that fit into other stories you've done with, how does that connect, within the Captain America? Where were the X-Men, when Thanos was here? What happened to them? And I think there was no place that Marvel could really, really figure out where to introduce the X-Men. That's how I feel. There was no place that could figure out how to introduce these X-Men characters. So, but, took what we said before, reset. With the reset, you can introduce how the X-Men have been here the entire time. Or the reset really tells us that this is going to be the start of something new. That the reset offers you to do so many things, in my opinion. It allows you to introduce the X-Men, which is very, very awesome, making it that they've been in this new MCU timeline the entire time. But it also allows you to do other things, in my opinion, like, I don't know, a new Black Panther. Telling more Black Panther stories. And, we got Black Panther 3 coming in. I'm not going to go into that, but this is about X-Men right now. With the X-Men, it allows them to enter the universe without trying to figure out how they fit into the current MCU timeline. And what he says here, their standalone MCU film, led by director Jake Schreier, will feature a brand new cast embodying younger versions of the mutants. Now, younger is very much a in-between word, in my opinion. Younger means, does it mean younger to, 15, 18-year-olds? Are we looking kind of like a baby X-Men, teenage X-Men, more like X-Men Evolution? Or are we looking for 20 to 24-year-olds? They're kind of in between the college and kind of adulthood, where they're young enough, you can get good actors to play young enough, but not too old. I think this is the way to go. I've always felt we've already gotten the older X-Men. We got the Bryan Singer X-Men, where they're kind of adults. But I think you do a younger version. It honestly relates to the younger audience as well, because these are people who. The X-Men are characters who are despised by humans. It doesn't matter, what a mutant is. It doesn't matter if that mutant's a good person. They are despised by everyone because of how they look and how they present themselves, because people see them as, these are the people who are going to take our jobs. Oh, these are the people. It has very much to do, I think, with the political climate we face today, with everything going on with ICE. I don't want to get into political stuff, but that's why, I look at that and I'm listen, X-Men, that is your gateway. X-Men can be is the new thing I think is going to come out after Secret Wars. I think that's going to be the thing that's going to replace Avengers, replace everything else. Listen, people want X-Men. People want this to work. And I think younger versions, you get to look it through the eyes of younger characters, like a younger Cyclops, a younger Jean Grey, a younger Bobby Drake, if you want to go even that far. But, I think younger is good. People might not like it. People be I don't know how I feel about younger. I want the adult X-Men. I want that. Listen, we've already seen the adult X-Men. We've seen the X-Men as adults. I think you do this reset. You're not strung by the limitations of your universe, because the X-Men are going to be the foundation of building something brand new, a new Marvel Cinematic Universe, because this is going to be a new Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is a reset, not a reboot. Some of those characters we've seen in other MCU movies will probably still be in the MCU, but it's really a place to introduce new characters like the X-Men and get rid of the characters that didn't work, in my opinion, in the Marvel Universe, like characters I think did not work, like She-Hulk. I think She-Hulk is something we don't need to go again. Secret Invasion, we're always wondering, like, how does Secret Invasion relate to all this? Oh no, you do the reset, bye-bye Secret Invasion, no longer there. So I think this is the only way you can introduce X-Men. There is no other way. And then that leads us to our next thing that this article says about. Even core MCU icons may be recast eventually. Let me take a little sip first. Alright. Now, this is what Feige said. Feige teased new actors for Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and others, underscoring Marvel's openness to evolving its heroes for future narratives, similar to how Bond and Superman have been up to. Listen, we have had so many Bonds, but do you need to watch every single Bond film to get the story of Bond? No, you don't. We've had, I don't know, about 10 to 15 Supermen. Did you guys go into Superman thinking like, oh, I wonder how Henry Cavill Superman, is going to be similar to this Superman. Oh, I wonder how that connects. No. This is what happens. Actors play a character, then move on. The actor is not the character. The actor embodies the character they are playing. That's why I felt like the T'Challa... I think this was mainly to say about the T'Challa thing. Listen, I have tremendous respect for Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick Boseman was in some of my favorite movies of all time, like movies like 42, and of course Black Panther. But I thought, instead of, they felt like the best way to honor Chadwick was, to not recast the character. I'm like, listen, I think if Chadwick Boseman was here, and he's like, no, go ahead. I think he would have wanted someone else to carry on the legacy of that Black Panther character. Listen, Superman. You look at the Superman. Christopher Reeves had that terrible accent. Could no longer play Superman. Luckily, he was still alive. And they're like, listen, he probably, in a sense, like, I want someone else to continue this character for me, because I think he felt the world still needs Superman. So that's why they did Brandon Routh. They did the Brandon Routh Superman. Sure, that didn't turn out well, but still, I thought Brandon Routh was an enjoyable Superman. I think it was a massive mistake not to recast T'Challa, not because it was dishonoring the legacy of Chadwick, but I think it would have shown that it is someone pushing his legacy forward, like having the legacy of Black Panther live on someone else. I think that is what someone wants, even if Chadwick might be one of the most perfect combo casting, in my opinion, of all time as Black Panther. I think, you look at it like, listen, people love T'Challa. Chadwick wouldn't want T'Challa to die with him. I think Chadwick would have wanted someone else to portray the role, to not just honor him, but the legacy of the Black Panther character. Now, with the reset, it allows you to recast not just Black Panther, but characters who are already gone. Characters like Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. Listen, a lot of people, when they think of that, think of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans for their roles. But listen, we've seen how much this saga of the MCU has suffered because we don't know who the big boys for our Avengers are in this universe. Because when I think of the Marvel Universe, I think of leaders of the Avengers. I think Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. Now, you can make the argument saying, what about Sam Wilson? He's Captain America. Yes. But Captain America Brave New World proved Sam Wilson is not a leader. Listen, I think Sam Wilson is a great character in the role he plays as the Falcon. I think he works so much better as the Falcon. I think as Captain America, because even in the comics, he is not a super soldier. How can people believe in a guy who isn't that powerful? Because that's just my thing, I think Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, they are the Batman and Superman of the MCU. And we've seen it, like I said, we have seen that this has not worked. It's not an understatement. Since Endgame, Marvel has not been working. They've had some hits, but they've had a lot of misses because the audience just can't wrap their head around some of these characters because, first off, too many characters, and of course, we want more. There are so many more stories with Steve Rogers and Tony Stark, you can tell, and I will always love Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. I will always love them for their portrayal of those characters. And when I think of those characters when I read comic books, I hear their voices when I read them in comics. But I think it's a passing of the torch, I'm gonna go back to DC, Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve, even if he didn't get hurt, he couldn't have played Superman for the rest of his life. He's like, listen, eventually you gotta, push out the legacy. You gotta have someone else come in new to play the character, give different takes on the character, because Robert Downey Jr., in my opinion, is Tony Stark, but he is not Tony Stark, the person, if that makes any sense, because, people look at Robert Downey Jr. like, oh, only him can play Tony Stark. No. I bet if you do a really, really good deep dive into the world, go find someone, you can find another guy who plays Tony Stark, just how James Gunn went to go find another guy to play Superman, even though we still had Henry Cavill. We've had almost 7 different Batman. We've had 3 to 4 different Spider-Man, if you want to count, the animated versions. We can have other people portray these characters. It's not just one person plays for the rest of their lives and no one else plays them. That's not how it works. That's not how business works. That is not how it works. We see, even the comic books, they've done resets, with characters where, characters have looked different, they've been drawn differently, it happens all the time. And I think we need to get over this thing where, only one person can ever play this role. Sure, end of the day, Robert Downey Jr. will be remembered for Tony Stark, Iron Man, no question about it. But that doesn't mean that we can have other interpretations of the character. You really think if Sean Connery had played Bond through his entire life that it would have been perfect? You really think that if Sean Connery had played Bond through that entire time, we would have never had Pierce Brosnan. We never would have gotten Daniel Craig. Seeing these other interpretations of the characters that other people might want to see, it might be even better than the original. Who knows? We might get a Steve Rogers, a new one, in this reset MCU timeline, who is even better than Chris Evans. I know I'm saying it out there, but that's what makes it more enjoyable. Seeing the characters we love betrayed again, having different stories. My God, we have seen so many different Batman. Do you think people were mad when they cast Robert Pattinson as Batman? Be like, oh no, only Christian Bale can be Batman. No, because they're telling different stories. It's not like they're reusing the same story. They're telling different stories, just with someone else playing the character. It happens all the time. And for Marvel to finally admit that they should be doing this, I think is a really good step in the right direction. I think you need to do it because, in my opinion, the leaders of MCU right now, those are characters I think people personally have not had great movies. I'm looking at you, Sam Wilson, Captain America. I'm looking at you, Shuri, Black Panther 2. Characters that people don't believe can actually be leaders in MCU. You need to have those leader-type characters. And Tony Stark and Steve Rogers are those characters. And I think you can have someone else portray the character because the actor is not the character. The actor is portraying the character. They don't get the right to say, it's my character, only I can play it. No. We've had other Superman. We've had other Spider-Man. We've had other Bonds. And that's why I'm going to leave it off. Put it down below if you think anything different. This is the last part of that article here. Sorry, guys, I'm getting thirsty right now. Now, the last part of this first article is, legacy actors haven't been ruled out completely. Listen, like I said before, Multiverse Saga has not been my thing. I feel like Multiverse Saga has just been ooh, look at that. Ooh, it's shiny. Ooh, that's cool. Ooh, Gambit. Oh, look, his blade. Oh, look, it's Professor Xavier. I feel like the cameo thing has kind of been outused. Now, Kevin Feige basically says, while Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds remain in play, Feige hints their future involvement in post-Secret War Stories arc is still flexible. Listen, I don't think you can do an MCU Deadpool movie. I don't think you can, because just how, I I don't see like where you would put a Deadpool into fitting in the MCU, where it's a Disney brand and Deadpool is very much on Disney, sure. But they're like, man, what about Deadpool and Wolverine? That was a Disney movie. Yes, but in my opinion, Deadpool felt more in the 20th Century Fox film, because that is the first R-rated movie they did, and you had to do R-rated for Deadpool. Listen, I am open to be seeing those guys again if it is not, if it is a like what James Gunn's doing. Like, I love that James Gunn is like, listen, we have our main DCU timeline, but then we also have our Elseworld stories, the stories that don't have to follow the continuity of my DC universe. I think Marvel should do something like that. I think the perfect name for those stories are What If. And I'm not saying like the What If series, but the What If comics originally were supposed to be like stories about alternate things that could have happened in the Marvel comic timeline. I think if you're like, hey, you want to do a Wesley Snipes Blade 4. Okay, we can't really fit that into the MCU, but what if we did it in kind of an Elseworlds or a What If type of story, Giving Wesley Snipes a kind of send-off for that character in his own last movie. Or doing more Deadpool with Ryan Reynolds. Do like another Deadpool, but don't make it part of the MCU. I think if you want to bring back legacy actors to play these characters, you have to do them as not connecting to the Marvel Universe. I think that's what you gotta do. You can't have every single project, I think, in Marvel connect to each other. I think that's what my problem was. Like, it felt like more like homework. Like, MCU felt more like homework. Like, even though Deadpool and Wolverine was very much like not very super connected to MCU, people were like, oh, TVA, that's MCU. Oh, it must be connected. Oh, they talked about the Avengers. Oh, Jon Favreau, MCU, Avengers. Like, Deadpool and Wolverine, in my opinion, I view that as something not an MCU movie, more of like a final hurrah for the 20th Century Fox, superhero films, which I grew up with like most of my life. But what do you guys think about that so far? Like, should legacy actors, if they return, should they be in movies that are connected to the MCU, or do you think they should be kind of separate, one-off movies, kind of what James Gunn's doing with his DCU? We're having his main timeline, and then he has his Elseworld stories. Leave comments down below. For this video of Let's Talk About It. Leave comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.